Hi, this is Doug Morrill, Training Manager with Norgren. I'd like to welcome you to Norgren's PAC Expo webinar series. This is the third webinar. Hopefully you were able to attend the initial two. Norgren is a global leader in motion and fluid controls equipment solutions. Today I'm going to talk about the importance of using air prep in the packaging industry and how Norgren's new flagship air prep product range, the Exelon Plus, can provide solutions that will benefit you. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been with Norgren for over 30 years in many different roles, from engineering to product management to technical support. So I've worked with a lot of companies in the packaging industry, and hopefully you'll find this webinar beneficial. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Again, what I'm going to do is talk about some of the key requirements for pneumatics in the packaging industry, how air preparation can help resolve those issues associated with meeting those needs, as well, and what Norgren products can solve these kind of problems. So just kind of I'm probably singing to the choir, but requirements for the packaging industry. As we all know, high efficiency is critical. Speed, durability. We need to be able to move fast. We need to package things quickly. That is key for the industry. We need to have durability in our equipment and robustness. You can't have your equipment breaking down all the time because then, again, it affects speed, things like that. So we need to keep the equipment running efficiency. Also, a key item is floor space. Everybody knows we're trying to save floor spaces. That's money, and also shipping costs. So again, we want to minimize the size and weight of the packaging equipment. So reducing that envelope size and keeping the weight down of that equipment is really key to in the industry. Minimizing downtime. Again, we don't want stuff breaking down. We want to reduce component failure. We want to reduce failed component, replacing those failed components, how much time it takes. So those are, another item that's key in this industry that you have to really be aware of. And finally, safety. Whenever you're safety is important all the time, but when you're in an industry with fast-moving parts, fast-moving equipment, there's certainly potential for people to get injured. So again, that's something, the safety of the employees and actually not damaging the equipment are two key factors that we need to be aware of and try to stay on top of. So air preparation can provide solutions for all of those, many of those issues. Filters, regulators, lubricators, or FRLs, they can affect the speed, efficiency, durability, quality, downtime, and safety of the system. Again, we'll go into a little bit more detail as we go into this. Again, their size and weight of these it can affect the envelope size, therefore the floor space, and also shipping costs. You have a bunch of heavy components on the equipment, and it affects shipping costs. Shut-off valves and soft start dump valves. These are items that people just generally don't even think about. And again, it affects safety, the durability, and the downtime of the line certainly can affect all those things, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And finally, pressure switches and sensors. We're in a world where we want to have more control, have more information, have more connectivity. And what pressure switches and sensors do is allow you to monitor, control different equipment, and it affects efficiency, durability, and quality, and downtime. So all these three items are key to meet some of those characteristics we talked about in the original slide. Certainly that's the case. So one thing I'll just touch base on, Norgren has been a leader in air prep for many, many years, back from when Carl Norgren invented the first inline lubricator back in 1927. And we've had our flagship Exelon line for many, many years, and it's been the dominant air prep unit in the industry. And now we have our new Exelon Plus range, and we're really excited about it. It has a lot of different options. I'll just touch on them real quickly here before we go into the others. So, compact size and lightweight. So really, again, one of the critical things that people are looking for is having small, light units, and these units are very small and light. And we were able to do that without compromising on robustness. We still have metal construction. We'll talk about that. A double safety bowl lock. Again, safety is critical. We'll talk about that a little more. We have best-in-class water extraction, so being able to move water out of the system is key, and this unit's great at that. We have an easy filter maintenance system where it's really quick to remove and replace the filters. Doesn't take much space. We'll talk about that. We have a flush-mounted integrated gauge, which doesn't stick out from the unit, which adds beneficial features we'll talk about. We got the rotating shutoff valve. So again, rotating shutoff valve that makes it easy to manual turn and take energy out of the system when you need to do that. And we have tamper-proof built-in options, lock options for both the regulator, filter regulator, and the shut-off valve, which we'll talk about as well. So just want to touch base on just the whole unit overall, and we're really excited about having this product and really feel it's the best product on the market. So again, now let's talk about the keys in pneumatics. So speed is critical, as we mentioned, and speed is equal to flow. So what we're looking at here is for the Exelon Plus, and what you need to do is have plenty of flow, and this unit has extreme flow for its envelope size. So really, when you're talking about flow, you want to be able to get the most flow you can out of the smallest envelope, and the Exelon Plus does an outstanding job of that. We've got flow demands from 65 SCFM to 265 SCFM, which will handle most of your requirements. We do have bigger units that aren't on our flagship range that are modular, that will allow you to get to much higher flows too if you absolutely need it. But generally, when you're in these ranges, you'll be able to get the flow you need in the smallest envelope size that there is. Another key item that we want to be concerned about in the packing industry is durability. Again, we talked about we want to keep that equipment running. It's high speed. We need to keep equipment running. We need stuff to be moving fast. So we don't want any of our components breaking down. So it's key that all the components are durable. And in the case of Exelon Plus, as you can see here, a lot of people look at this and think, oh, it's a plastic unit, so it's probably not very durable. But as you can see, you take off these covers and all the key parts are metal. Very similar to what we have in our previous flagship Exelon range, which of course Norgren is known as having most durable equipment in the industry for air prep. And so in this case, as you can see, again, we have metal all the way through. We have the covers that cover up to get, and then we did that to get our weight down. Because in addition to being robust, we want to make sure we have that robustness at the lightest weight and size possible. And we've done an excellent job with Exelon Plus doing that, where we have a small port-to-port, lightweight and a small envelope size for the amount of flow you get. So again, extremely durable, high flow, and you get durable, high flow, and at a lightweight and a small envelope size. Port-to-port is as good as anybody in the industry. So really did a fabulous job with Exelon Plus, and really good for using in your industry. Now I'll talk a little bit about modularity, because it provides reduced work time, reduced downtime, as well as increased flexibility. In this case, as you can see, one of the key things is if you do have something that fails, you want to be able to change it out quickly. You don't want your line to be down, and that's key in an industry like packaging, where you're moving so fast and have things going so quickly. So in this case, you can see our Exelon line had our quick clamp system, and this has our quick clamp system. And as you can see, really easy to change out parts. It's modular. So if you have something that fails, a product that fails, you can just loosen 2 screws, flip the unit open, pull out the damaged unit, replace the new unit, flip the two arms back up, and tighten the screws back down. So once you have that product replaced and ready there, it takes you less than a minute to change this thing out. So really fast, keeps your lines up and running. The top pictures up here just show the brackets without the units, and down here shows the units. You can see how easily it works, and it really works effectively. The other huge advantage of having these units is in modular is if you decide, for example, oh yeah, it'd be nice to have a soft start dump valve, you can add one onto your system just by adding a quick clamp, so you don't have to do any substantial piping, anything like that. You add it using a new quick clamp, so it really gives you a lot of flexibility for adding components, adding different things, much easier than starting from scratch and doing things like that. Now we'll talk about some more of the individual units. So filters are key in any system, because here again, if you look at any pneumatic component, we make valves, we make actuators. Ours, just like everybody else's warranty, we have best in the industry warranty of 2 years, but anybody's warranty says that warranty is good only if you have clean, dry air. So there again, everybody knows that, understands it. To keep equipment running efficiently, you need to keep contaminants out of there, and that's what filters do. So if you want to keep your equipment running, stop them from breaking down in systems, you have it where they can clog up the system, you really need filters. In this case, we have, you have a general purpose filter, and in the case of Exelon Plus, we have an industry best water extraction, which we mentioned. We meet class 8 of the ISO standard. So in that case, we are able to move out water as well as anybody, so it doesn't damage your system. Our standard filtration are 40 and 5 microns. So those are the two options for filtration. Most standard applications, most standard packing applications, 40 micron is fine. If you do have some special requirements, some real specific equipment that needs greater filtration, a 5 micron works. One thing I would like to point out here is make sure you understand there's a lot of people think, oh, well, 5 micron is better than 40 micron. It's not. It depends on what your application is. If you are using a 5 micron element in an application that could live with 40, all that means is you're going to clog up that element faster. It's going to make your compressor work more, and you're going to have to change that element out more often, because these units do work where once a filter element gets clogged, you replace it. So here again, make sure that you try to understand what your application is and use a 40 when you need a 40 and a 5 when you need a 5. So again, 100% of applications can use general purpose. You never really want any contaminants in your system, so all applications really can use a general purpose filter. Next type of filter is the coalescing filter, which actually removes oil, as well as, just because of the mechanics of the element, moves particulate down to 0.01 micron. So here again, this is a situation where if you can't have any oil in your system, you want to use a coalescing filter. And again, this is liquid oil. And so you want to use one of those. And if you do need to get really tiny particle removal, you can use one of these coalescing filters with that. Let me point out that you always want to put a general purpose filter in front of coalescing filter, because this 0.01 micron particulate filter will get clogged up fast. So if you want to use a 5 micron general purpose element in front of this coalescing filter, if you're using one, because these elements are reasonably expensive. Actually, they're nearly as expensive as a whole general purpose unit. So you want to make sure you do that. I'd say probably about 40% of applications could need a coalescing filter. So certainly not all, but when you need one, you do need it. Final, a vapor removal filter. This is probably only about 5% of applications. You only really use this where you can't have any oil in the system at all. It removes oil vapor, so that's what it's doing. You have to make sure you use a coalescing unit in front of it, because if liquid oil hits the element, it damages it. You have to replace it. So again, when you're using this filter, you need to make sure you use a coalescing in front of it. One of the things that people don't realize that actually oil vapor is where we get a lot of the smells from. So if you have an application where you don't want any smell in it, like you're filling up a bottle, you're filling up a potato chip bag, you're blowing them open, you want to make sure you use a oil removal filter to remove those smells. But here again, this is where you need to, if you need the cleanest air you can, you want to include a vapor remover, because it gets all the oil vapor out. Paint booths, sometimes you want to do that just because it'll, they get any oil on your panels, it can cause damage. So really key to have filters to keep your equipment running. Now the Norgren filters have some additional advantage, the Exelon Plus units, over some of the other ones in the competition. First thing to talk about is the dual safety lock bowl. Again, we want to make sure this bowl is secure on there. You're having pressures on the units. And so what we have is a double locking system. At the top of the unit, there's a detent. And basically what it does is when you get that bowl in place and it's pressurized with 2 or 3 PSI, you can't get that bowl off. So once it's pressurized, you can't get it off. So that's the initial locking mechanism. In addition to that, we have a clip lock, as you can see here, which basically what it does is when you turn it into place, it'll actually click or snap in place, so you know the bowl's fully engaged. And to remove the bowl, you have to pull that clip down and twist it the other way around. So again, that stops that bowl potentially from vibrating loose if there's no pressure in the system. So again, it gives you additional safety to protect your employees, which of course we know all is key in really all industries. The other item that we have, I also mentioned that please notice that we do have both manual and auto drains. So again, you can have ones where the manual where you have to drain yourself. We also have auto drains that you can pipe away, where you can actually pipe either one away. But the auto drain, once you get a certain liquid level, it dumps that, so you don't have to worry about it. Filters, you do have to drain the bowls on occasion, or they'll stop functioning, because if they fill up with water, they'll stop functioning. So what this does is makes it fit and forget, so you can just go ahead and remove those and take those out. Again, the next item that we have on the Exelon Plus that's really a cool feature is we have cartridges. We have a cartridge for the element. So what this does is allow very, very quick removal. Again, if that element is clogged, you need to change it. You can remove it, pop it out. It stays with the bowl, so you're able to just pop a unit out. You don't have to unthread stuff, tighten stuff down. It just pops that cartridge out and pop the new one in, and you're going. So really fast replacement time, which of course, again, as I said, is key to keep your lines running. The other feature that has, again, it keeps the envelope size down by being that cartridge and keeping with the bowl. Therefore, you don't need a lot of clearance to remove that bowl. So when you're taking off that bowl, rather than having to pull that bowl down where it clears the element, where you'd probably be needing like 3/4 to an inch to get it around there, probably more like 2 inches. In this case, you only need 25 millimeters to space to be able to move that bowl. So again, you're saving envelope size on your machine, so you can get more equipment in a smaller space. So again, we talked additionally how key that is, and Excellent Plus units have market best numbers again there. So now we'll move on to regulators. So regulators can reduce costs and improve quality. And really what we're talking about here is it allows you, what a regulator does, it allows you to lower the pressure to a certain level and keep it there. So you can adjust the pressure down to the optimal operating pressure, so your process is running at its optimal pressure. So it reduces variation, reduces any issues with the process, reduces scrap, improves your quality. So it allows you to drop that to a lower level, to the optimal operating pressure. And the other thing it does, it keeps it there. So therefore, it keeps you at that pressure and doesn't have it fluctuate. So again, eliminating variation from systems, as we all know, is key to improving and keeping your quality. So having a regulator on there, instead of having that pressure jumping all over as the inlet pressure can, as more people are starting and stopping machines, it keeps that pressure at that level where you're getting your optimal performance from your system. One of the other things where it saves money is, again, since you're lowering that pressure down, you're not at that line pressure. Pneumatic systems are open systems, so all that excess energy that you have just kind of goes in the exhaust. So if you're running a unit that at 100 psi that really it only needs 50, that means you're wasting, that compressor's running a lot more than it has to, because that extra energy and that extra pressure you're just dumping out of the system. So again, now you want to make sure you use a regulator, because it does help you save money with that as well. One other item I'll mention is these are relieving units. So what this does is keep the pressure down. For somehow if in some way pressure is introduced downstream, a relieving regulator will lower that pressure down to your operating pressure, and that can protect people from being hurt downstream if the pressure gets so high where something could burst, or if there's a piece of equipment that could get damaged by high pressure. This allows you to keep that pressure low. It also allows you, if you happen to go past your set pressure, by backing down the knob, you can go back below the pressure and bring it back up. So again, relieving is really critical in a lot of those applications. So again, regulators are really key to having in your system to both control and improve your quality, as well as reduce costs. Just show over here on the right, how you adjust a regulator is either you can turn the knob, that's a knob version, or the T-handle. Those are generally the two ways you would adjust the pressure on the regulator. So some advantage of the Excellent Plus, the features we have that not all the competition does. Some huge items that improves process control and monitoring, as well as reduce risk. First thing to talk about is we have a flush mount gauge. So in that case, you have a gauge, and you can see it down here in these two items on the left. That gauge is internal to the unit. And one thing you'll notice, we have a really large gauge. We do have some competitors who have the integrated gauge, but I tell you, if you look at their gauges, they're hard to read. They're small. They're really difficult. So we have a really nice size gauge to do that. Now, the other standard way to use a gauge is in the classic sense is where you have a screw-in gauge. Most common damage for gauges, most way to common gauges is somebody hitting it and knocking it off, breaking it off. Then your line goes down, you've got a huge leak, you got to shut down the system, you got to replace the gauge. By having this integrated gauge, it eliminates that as being such a high potential risk for being damaged. In addition to that, we have integrated tamper-resistant pop-up lockout features. So you can see in this case, basically, once you get your pressure set, you push down on the knob, and you're able to put a padlock in place. And what that does is it stops people from going behind. You get let the person who's in charge of the process set that pressure. You don't have people coming behind and messing, changing the pressure, adding variation to the system. So you can make sure you got that pressure that's set for that process. It's set, and nobody can mess with it. In this case, you can see we also have a clasp that will allow you to put two locks if you really don't want to have people. You could have maybe your supervisor and your maintenance supervisor have keys, so only certain people can adjust, can be able to undo that. But key thing here is it eliminates non-qualified people from changing the pressure. Now let's talk about a new feature that is fabulous, just released. We now have an integrated electric pressure sensor. So this provides visual signal. So if you want to have it set at a certain pressure and it goes outside that pressure, this can turn red when it's outside that desired pressure range. Also can send a signal. It's programmable. You can set it in there. So really fabulous for giving visual and be able to give a signal for when that pressure goes out. We're the only current air prep manufacturer who has an integrated gauge. There are people who have these ones where you can add on. They stick out similar to what the gauge shows above, where somebody could hit it. You have additional leak points, more likely for damage. We have an integrated gauge that you can order actually on the unit that's built into that, which really gives some added benefits. And finally, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because I could spend a half hour spending on that, but it gives IO-Link connectivity. So it allows you all kinds of control for monitoring, for controlling. It sends signals, it can receive signals, communicate with different products like our new valve line. You can communicate with our valve line, communicate with any IO-Link component, and communicate back and forth. So really a great feature. Mike Parzik has delivered a webinar on that. It was the first webinar of our series for the PACK Expo yesterday. And if you didn't get a chance to watch that, let me know. Hopefully you had a chance to review that because it really good, valuable information. If you, I have my email at the end of this session. If you didn't get to see it and would like a copy of it, drop me a line and I can send you a copy of that video of his presentation. But really fantastic. The IO-Link connectivity is really fantastic. You're really looking to get out to the world. We're starting to see where you can communicate and control so many things. So just let me know on that. All right, so one thing I just mentioned here, let's be quick. We do have a filter reg. So basically it's a unit that takes the filter and the regulator and puts it together. I'm not going to talk about all the features and the benefits because they're identical to the regulator and the filter. So what this does, it allows you to get the exact same features and benefits as a filter and a regulator separately, but in one unit. So it saves money and saves vertical space. So in that case, excuse me, it saves horizontal space. So in that case, you can save money and get all the features of this. I will say that this filter is a general purpose filter. So it doesn't come in a coalescing or a vapor removal option, but great units to save money and space. All right, lubricators. So lubricators reduce downtime and equipment replacement. So again, what this does is it puts oil into the system. So basically, you think about your car, you have oil in your system. If your car runs out of oil, it's going to break down. This is the same type of situation where a lubricator puts oil into the system to reduce wear of components. We'll mention that these units are really near and dear to my heart. I mentioned earlier that Carl Nordgren back in 1927 basically designed the first inline lubricator. He sat down at lunch with a tier 1 supplier for GM, and what they were talking about is how much their equipment was breaking, their pneumatic equipment was breaking down. You can imagine, they were just starting, this is the start of assembly lines and pneumatic drivers and things like that. And back then, what you had is compression fittings. So basically, we didn't have these nice new quick connects where you could take them on and off quickly. So how you would lubricate those pieces of equipment, you'd have to loosen two nuts, the compression fitting, the two nuts, put a couple drops of oil in, tighten the two nuts down, and start up again. You can imagine that didn't happen as often as it should. So equipment was really breaking down. It's one reason that Carl Nordgren is known as the father of pneumatics in some ways, because if they wouldn't have solved that problem, they would have probably used a different energy source other than compressed air to assemble and do these kind of things. So again, lubricators are really near to our heart here at Nordgren, so we like to talk about them. Now, one thing I would say here as well is a lot of the equipment now, we make valves, we make actuators, and our valves and actuators are no lube, but actually pre-lubed. All these units are pre-lubed, so there's not as much necessity to have a lubricator. We thought when that happened, what it was 30 years ago, that our lubricator sales would really decrease by a great deal, but it didn't drop as much as we thought, and that's because even in those pre-lubed units, if you use a lubricator, you can extend the life of those products by 2 to 3 times. So some people still want to do it, but certainly you don't have to, because those pre-lubed units work just fine. I would say if you do lubricate one of those pre-lubed units, you can't, if you're going to stop lubricating, you'd have to rebuild the unit, because you have to replace that factory lube. Our lubrication would push out the factory lube and you have to replace it. So it's something just to keep in mind. So again, this allows you to adjust the amount of oil added to the system, so it's adjustable, so it can be set at a certain level. It is proportional to flow, so as flow increases, the amount of oil increases. So it's not like you have to change the lubricator every time you have a little bit of change in your, where the flow is changing, things like that. So now I'll talk a little bit about Norgren lubricator specific. Basically, again, we provide two types of lubricators. Lubricators really provides to satisfy every customer need. So in that case, what most competitors have is the oil fog lubricator. This is the one that basically close to what Carl first invented back in 1927. It provides a great amount of oil. It's almost like a rain that comes in and drops out of the air fairly quickly. So it's great to use if you need a bunch of oil, like a sawmill or something, and it's really close to the lubricator. In most cases, that may not be the case. What we have is, which is to a great deal unique to Norgren, is a microfog or mist type lubricator. Provides a fine mist of oil that keeps that oil in the air much longer. So what it's able to do is travel long distances. It's able to go uphill where the oil fog, that oil will not go uphill, where this will allow, if your application goes up, that oil will reach up, and it also can handle really complex circuits. So if you have a lot of bends in your piping and stuff, this oil will make it around those bends and get to the actual application. So those units are really key to have. It also is easier to adjust because of how it functions. It's easier to make fine adjustments. So we generally we recommend on most of our applications this microfog lubricator. And if you do need lubrication, definitely take a look at these units because they work fantastic. We make the best lubricators in the market. Finally, it's similar to what we have on the filter. We do have the dual safety lock bowls. So again, we have that safety feature built into this unit. So now we're talking about shutoff valves. Here again, this is something that should be in more applications and people forget about. So shutoff valves provide safety and reduce costs. So basically what you're having here is you're able to basically, what this unit does is when you shut it off, it releases all the air, which is all the energy from the system, and then basically closes. So if you're doing any maintenance or anything downstream on the line, or have anything you want to do down in the system, it's great to have a shutoff valve because you shut this off, it releases the energy and doesn't let energy in the system until you turn it back on. So it really can help protect folks who are doing repairs if you want to do things like that. The other time people will use it a lot is if you have only a day shift and you're at the end of the shift, you can go ahead and shut off this valve because in your system you probably have hundreds of leak points that potentially you have a lot of air leaking out of the system and has your compressor running unnecessarily. So at the end of the shift, you also can use this valve just to shut it off and let the system, and therefore the air doesn't go out into the system and leak out and lose all that money. You can shut it off and then the next morning just go ahead and turn it on and re-energize your system. Now in Norgren's case, our Exelon Plus, again, our shutoff valves have some great features that not everyone has. The ball type, it's a ball type shutoff valve, which makes it really easy to turn. So even with basically for manual operation, it makes it real easy to use. So that's certainly a benefit in most cases. The other thing we have is integrated locking mechanism. So basically it's lockable using a padlock, and that's what you can see up here on the top. So what you're able to do in those situations where you do have someone who's working on a piece of equipment, basically you can shut off the air and you can lock it so somebody can't come behind you. The maintenance guy's out there working on a piece of equipment, somebody comes behind him and turns back on the air. I know when I first started in the industry, 30 years ago, in most cases, what we do is we just used a regulator. We pack the regulator off to zero. Somebody be working on it. Somebody could come in behind him and say, geez, this regulator normally is at 80 PSI, and turn it back on. And all of a sudden you got equipment moving around the guy who's repairing the equipment. So this eliminates that from happening because you can lock it out of place. So these units, they should be on almost every air prep unit you have because it allows you to be able to shut off that system and protect your employees. In addition to that, we have a 2-lock class. So what you're able to do is put 2 padlocks on this unit. And what that does is basically gives double protection. A lot of times you'll have where maybe the supervisor of the area and the maintenance guy both have the lock. So that way it takes both of them to agree that the system's ready to go and that they're ready to go turn on the system. So they agree, they unlock it and turn it on. Not one person, it takes 2 people to agree that things are safe and everybody's in a safe position and it's safe to turn it on. So again, just some great features that really will give you a lot of benefits. All right, next item I want to talk about is a soft start dump valve. It provides safety, durability, and maintenance costs, saves on maintenance costs and downtime. So dump valve, basically what it does is it adds energy to the system slowly before going to full pressure. So you think about a system where early in the morning, every time you're turning on your system, if you have any moving parts that move when you energize a system, you generally want to have a soft start dump valve. What it does is, so you think about a robotic arm that moves into place when you pressurize the system. Therefore, you turn on and pressurize the system. You don't want that. If you don't have one of these on here, it's going to snap into place. It could damage the arm if it moves real quickly and jerks into place. The other thing that can happen is if there's somebody around that, somebody could be injured. So it protects both equipment and people if you do have a situation where things move when you energize the system. So really key to do that. You're able to signal that. You can either have it be a manual, or you can have it where it's signaled electronically to do that. So a lot of options as far as how you turn that system on, but really key for safety. In addition to that, this has a dump function. So basically what this will do as well is dump air extremely quickly out of the system and lightning fast. So again, what you have is you have a system where you want to get the energy out right away. It'll do it. It'll do it fast enough to meet the OSHA standards. Now, again, you got to size it properly so it meets those OSHA standards, but this dumps air so fast that it will do it in what meets the OSHA standards. Again, you can have it manual, you can have it electronic, you can have it where, okay, if this pressure in the system gets to this point, we want this item, this dumping, this thing can do that with via electronic signal. So again, fabulous product for safety and really great to have in all your systems. Now, an Oregon soft start dump valves does have some features that other folks don't have. One of the things, as we mentioned before, is it's on the modular quick clamp system. So if you decide you want to have it or you're going to add it, it's just a matter of adding a quick clamp. It's just a matter of adding a quick clamp. You can add the system, easy to do. So really a benefit there. In addition to that, we also offer just a dump valve. So if you don't need the soft start functionality, you can order just a dump valve. And again, modular, put it in with the quick clamp, all those kind of things. All right, so now we'll move on to basically our final component item, which is pressure switches and sensors, and basically improve many aspects of the system, because what you're able to do is monitor that pressure, control things, signal things, basically based on the pressure of the system. So you can make decisions, you can set it up where it triggers things, as we said. You have it where it triggers your dump valve, you can have it trigger other things and let you know, hook it up to a light so it gives visual warning, a lot of things. So again, this just gives you options where you know what the pressure is, you can do things based on that pressure and make decisions and control things. Really gives you a lot of options as far as what you need to do. Now in Oregon's case, as I mentioned, we have these new features. The new feature, we have this new electronics pressure switch here that basically quick clamps right into the system. You control and send signals. And again, one thing this has as well is the IO link. And I have these other pressure switches. We have multiple pressure switches that do multiple things. And the 84Q84G, which is the Exelon Plus version of the pressure switch, and the 34D, and this one goes to much higher pressures, much more specific. Really, it's this 34D is one that will go to high pressures and do all kinds of additional have additional performance characteristics in harder, more difficult application situations that allow you to do the same kind of thing. But both of these have the IO-Link capability, which allows you to communicate with industrial networks, for remote setup and access performance data for improved machine operations. So again, really going this next step where we want to do communication, we want control. These things give you the ability to do that. And again, as I mentioned before, Mike Parzik did a webinar earlier this week on this subject. And if hopefully you caught that, then you'll know as much about it and understand what we're talking about here. But if not, again, reach out to me and I'll send you a copy of the video and you can watch it at your convenience. So now we're nearing the end. You're probably thrilled. Here we've got, just in addition to that, we have Exelon Plus all kinds of accessories. So again, we talked about the quick clamps already, but we have porting blocks. We have pressure sensor blocks. We have other kinds of mounting where we have panel mounts, different kind of brackets. We have the port adapters where, again, so when you pipe these up, you have it completely, and you never have to unthread or thread something to change out a component. You have this port adapter at the end of the quick clamp on the front and back end, and you never have to mess with your plumbing when you're changing out those parts. So again, just want to make sure you understand we have a lot of accessories, gives you a lot of flexibility. So when you're using the Exelon Plus system, you can absolutely do that. I would be remiss to not mention that we have a world-class online configurator where you can easily go in and put these units together. You don't have to buy just all individual components. You can buy these units configured, shipped to you, already assembled. It will put these things in order so you don't make the mistake of putting something in front of something in the wrong location. For example, a lubricator in front of a filter or something like that. It'll help you only do the right, make sure the components are put in the right sequence. You can order it. It's a fantastic unit. So go ahead, and if you get a chance, you can just get on the website, but go to that configurator. You can build whatever product you need to match your needs easily and effectively. All right, so that does conclude the presentation. Hopefully this has been beneficial to you. Again, wanted to make sure we reviewed how air preparation can provide solutions and help people, folks in the packaging industry, all these things, filters, regulators, and lubricators affect speed, efficiency, durability, quality, downtime, and safety. They can positively affect all that stuff. The size and weight of these units affects envelope size and floor space, shipping costs. So again, getting effective units is critical. And we have, as far as flow size for envelope size, industry best units. Shutoff valves and soft start valves are items that people forget about. It can affect safety, durability, and downtime. So give a thought to that. And certainly the shutoff valve. Don't forget shutoff valves, because about every system can have that. If you do have items that do have moving components when you start the system, certainly consider a soft start dump valve, because that'll help you with that. And finally, pressure switches and sensors. We live in a world where we're wanting to have more control and communication and things like that. And these pressure switches and sensors allow you to do that. And in the case of Norgren, we have fantastic new products that are on the leading edge of a technology. So make sure you take advantage of that. And I'll again give Mike Parzak a plug to say, if you want to have a copy, if you didn't get a chance to see his webinar, reach out to me and I can send you a copy of that. So that ends this presentation. I mean, again, hopefully you enjoyed it. I tell you, thanks so much for attending. It's really nice to be able to get some of this information out and talk about it. Hopefully it's been beneficial. And for questions, there will be a link in the chat that will allow you to ask any questions that I did not maybe cover as clearly as I should have. So please use that link in that chat to ask any questions. And to get more information on products, on the Exelon Plus, as well as other products, information, the configurator we mentioned, all that stuff, please visit our website at www.norgren.com. So again, thanks everybody for attending. I hope you have a good rest of your week and have a great day. Thanks a lot and take care.